This is TWiT. Trial of the century. I'm calling it the trial of the century. The Theranos trial, which has been delayed because of COVID, and then Elizabeth Holmes had a baby on August 5th. The trial begins on Tuesday in San Jose, just 20 miles from the headquarters of Theranos. Of course, Holmes is being tried for fraud. Observers, according to The Guardian, are gearing up for fireworks. Potential witnesses include such high-profile investors as Theranos former board member Henry Kissinger, Jim Mattis, Rupert Murdoch, Riley Bechtel, the former chairman of Bechtel. They'll be hearing from the jury. You'll be hearing from doctors who used the tests on their patients, from patients misled by Theranos results, including a woman whose test results falsely signaled a miscarriage despite a healthy pregnancy, a man who was falsely indicated to have prostate cancer, and two others who received false positive HIV results.
Wow.
She will not be tried with her partner, Sonny, and now this is going to be the thing to be interesting to watch, to see her throw Sonny Balwani to the wolves, and then Sonny in his trial to do the same to her.
Yeah.
Both are charged with defrauding investors and patients, making false claims about the effectiveness of their blood testing technology. The government alleges the pair defrauded investors by presenting ambitious revenue projections of $1 billion in 2015. The government says, in truth, Holmes and Balwani knew that Theranos had and would generate only modest revenues, roughly a few $100,000 or so. Already a TV movie is in progress. There's a podcast called Bad Blood.
There's a book called Bad Blood.
Carrier's book is very good. And
yeah,
they made a documentary out of that, right? Lisa and I watched that. And there's now a podcast as well, which Carrier hosts. He says if she's convicted and does significant prison time, it's going to be a shot across the bow to venture capitalists and startup founders in the Valley that there are limits to how much BSing you can do, how much exaggerating and hyping you can do, and how many rules you can break. You agree, Alex? You cover this.
Woo! So every startup likes to tell a positive story about themselves, but usually they get around stuff by just not telling you certain things, like, what was your revenue growth? Well, we're not sharing that. Standard kind of BSing amongst startups is standard and fine, easy to see through. The scale of fraud that we're talking about in the case of Theranos is kind of on a different level. So shot across the bow seems to be a slight exaggeration, more of like a cautionary tale for how bad fraud can be inside this world of startups. But yeah, if you're going to do medical technology, you got to have all of your ducks perfectly in a row. Otherwise, you will get into loads of trouble. But here's a tip. If a medical company has Henry Kissinger on the board, don't give it money.
That's a bad sign. There were I remember, there were no medical experts on the board. It was all
they had a war
well-known
criminal instead.
Yeah, well-known people. Yeah, war criminal. Okay.
I feel like if this wasn't a medical tie-in, that no one would care about this and it wouldn't be a big deal. People scam with these companies.
Look at Uber.
Yeah, I'm not going to say any names and cast any aspersions, but there has been rife fraud, lies, and scams with many a company, many a startup, many a venture capitalists. But since this has to do with someone's blood, their health, their
well, you heard, yeah,
that is why they're doing this shot across the board to scare people off. Like, this is more at the medical institutions. Like, yo, you can't mess with people's livelihoods and their life like this and play around and try to make money off of it on top of it for no reason. That's where they're like, we have to shut this down. We can't allow this to happen.
This is going to be a difficult prosecution. You have to prove intent, which is not going to be easy to do. And apparently, based on the witnesses that the defense is pulling up, Holmes is going to, they've got witnesses on domestic violence and mental health. Holmes is going to argue she was influenced by an abusive Sonny Balwani. And because he's not being tried at the same time as she is, that might actually work. His trial's in February, and he could do the same to her, and they could both get off.
Can we just like pay somebody to read the text message? Don't we have that service available so I can find out who bullied who?
Yeah,
and who said what to who? Like, at this point, everybody should go to jail. Because again, it's not your normal business scam. Women thinking they're losing their child, someone thinking they have a disease when they don't. Like, I don't care what you say. You're
That's
both
pretty
going to
bad.
jail.
I wish.
Hopefully, because that's something that needs to be shut down.
I guess they're not going to put you or me on the jury.
And put me on there.
No.
Matter of fact, I'm impartial. I just want to hear the information and the facts presented to me on each side
I'm
equally.
definitely not
It's
putting you
just-
on the jury.
I'm trying to plead my case, Uncle Leo. Let me plead my case to the American people.
You can't say I'm impartial because that just guarantees that you're not.
They know. Oh, no.
That's right.
I want to hear the facts. I will make up my mind at the end of the trial. I want to hear both sides.
Alex, say I'm impartial. Just lie to the people. If I can't say it myself, you can say it.
Never has a man been less partisan
The
than Mr.
one
Owen.
day you do want to be in the jury, experts thinking, and again, this is the Guardian, that Holmes will take the stand, that will testify on her own behalf, which that'll be something to see. That'll be something to see.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Is this going to be televised, or is this one of those?
I wish this would be so
Is
great
it?
to watch. I don't know.
Put it on pay-per-view. I mean, I'd cough up at least $100 to watch this thing, right? I don't want to go. I just want to watch it.
They did
because
settle
it's
with the
fascinating.
Securities and Exchange Commission. She paid a $500,000 penalty, but did not admit or deny the charges. So
I hate that. I hate that so much. Pay a fine, don't admit anything. Why do we let people get off without admitting guilt? Like, we should just be like, okay, it's $50 trillion if you don't want to admit anything, because it just seems like a slap on the wrist. $500,000 to a person who raised that much money and paid themselves a lot of it. I mean, come on.
I think
Half
also-
a million is inadequate.
yeah, she made
Yes.
more
It should
than that.
be at least $1 million.
We live in a world where a kid steals sneakers because he can't afford shoes, gets sent to Rikers Island for 6 months waiting for trial, and then commits suicide because he cannot even get a trial date. And people like this, who are ruining people's lives and scaring the mess out of them, just get to pay a fine that is pennies on the dollar and then go and blame someone else for their blatant mistakes. That is America. It makes me so enraged and angry.
And I think
as
the
much as I
media is a
laugh
little
at
to
it.
blame at this. She wore the black turtlenecks, the jeans. She was the female Steve Jobs. She was on the cover of magazines. The story was so good that the media couldn't help but kind of give her glowing coverage without any expertise, without really examining it. And as you point out, the people on the board were not medical experts. It was Secretary of Defense Mad Dog Mattis. It was former Secretary of State George Shultz. It was former war criminal Henry Kissinger. None of those people.
I don't think you can be a former war
his title?
criminal. I think that sticks
That's
with me.
permanent.
That's one of
Okay.
those career things. Yeah.
Ex-war criminal.
Like,
She was the world's youngest female self-made billionaire.
I mean, she might have got bullied by her board. If you just read off the names of the board, you can see how she was.
It's a bunch of old
the
guys.
average age of that board is 147.
Yeah,
She was
yeah.
bullying them. They were drooling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She, of course, has pled not guilty, and this will be anyway. Don't you think now? Not the trial of the century. I mean, the century's young.
Yeah, we're just kicking it off. It could be the kickoff trial of the
The
century.
first trial of this century.
Yeah, start of the century.
The preseason.
Yeah.